Hey, this is Jonathan Russell from The Head and the Heart, and you're listening to Capsule Podcast at liveandlimbo.com.
This is Capsule on liveandlimbo.com. My name is Sean Chin. The Head and the Heart are an indie folk and rock band from Seattle, Washington. And today I'm joined by Jonathan Russell, who leads with his amazing voice and also rocks the guitar. Thank you so much for being here. And how's your day been so far, man?
It's been really good. The sun is out today, and it's quite warm, actually. I'm in Richmond, Virginia, but so far so good, coffee, sunshine, no complaints.
Oh, that's perfect, because it's pretty cloudy and gloomy here in Toronto. But I like you guys so much because you make fantastic music, but you're very down to earth as well. And so, as I mentioned before, you have many different kinds of sounds and influences coming up in your music, but your vocals stand out the most to me. So did you ever take any formal singing lessons growing up?
No. I never did, really. I was always one of those kids that was walking around humming and singing, and you could tell that I loved singing, but I never thought that I would do this. I didn't start playing music until I was 18, 19. And even then I was just playing like hand drums, and then I taught myself how to play piano, but my voice was pretty bad, honestly, for a while.
Oh, really? No one would have ever thought that.
Well, you ask my mom, back in like 8th grade when I was obsessed with Mariah Carey and Boyz II Men, and she would have told you otherwise. But, I don't know. I just loved doing it, and I just kept at it.
So when did you eventually figure out, or when did someone tell you that your voice is good enough to actually sing and be recorded?
I don't know. Nobody really ever did. I just told myself that it was.
Well, that's great, yeah. And so when you get into your songwriting mode, what do you do to clear your mind and focus on that?
There's really not too much of a routine like that. It just sort of comes on when it comes on for me. I'm not one of those people who sits down, like from this time to this time every day and just writes until something good comes out. I don't know. I'll just sort of out of nowhere get an idea or a melody from something. I don't know where it comes from. And I'll just walk around singing it until I get in front of a guitar or a piano, and I can sort of like figure out what key it's in and write some chords to it. And then if it goes somewhere, then it goes somewhere. And if it doesn't, then I just sort of sit on it for a little while and just sort of let it incubate. And if it's good and if it's worth anything, then it'll generally start to, show signs of where it is that it needs to go. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you're like, well, that was just another fleeting idea, and that's okay. More will come. But I don't really have like a routine where, I think to some degrees I've realized that I'm somewhat superstitious, but not really with that. It just sort of comes when it comes, and then I try to catch it. Sometimes I catch it, sometimes I don't.
So there's a lot of trial and error there. Do you have a lot of stuff that doesn't make it, and you only keep what satisfies your standards?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you generally get a feeling from your own songs, and if you're not, then for me that's a sign of like, well, this doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't have as much weight. It doesn't. I don't know. That kind of just answers itself to like your own. You just get this feeling where, like, if you yourself as a songwriter don't get moved by what it is you're doing, then how do you expect anybody else to? So if you're not getting that feeling from the song as it's developing, then it's probably a bad sign.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I love that.
And that's okay. That's okay. Yeah.
And so a few weeks ago, you released a brand new music video for your song, Another Story, on YouTube. And something tragic happens in that video. And so what was it like filming something so emotional such as that?
That was great. it was the first. That was the first time that I've ever really been that involved with the writing of the treatment and just being on set the whole day and getting to know the people who were starring in it. Or it's pretty crazy. Like the scene where Troyan is running up to Haley, and it's the car scene crash, and I'm sitting in the backseat of this car. I just happened to have a harmonica on me just because there was a lot of downtime, and so I was just playing this really somber, like, harmonica music. And, you know, you have to do that scene like 10 times before everything is right. But every single time, like, the sounds of, which you don't hear because there's no audio, but the sounds that, like, you know, Troyan is making, like, when she's, you know, she's for her own benefit and for the acting, like, she's making, it felt so real. And, like, I would get goosebumps sitting in the back of this car and just watching. I mean, it was an honor to be a part of something where somebody else's performance is moving you that much to something that, you know, the plot, you know, I mean, you know what's going on, but I was still somehow able to, like, be transported into this as if it was a reality by how great of performances they were giving. So it was an honor. It was one hell of a way to start, you know, like hopefully the long road of being involved in these music videos. So.
Yeah, that was a great start. It's a fantastic video. I loved it so much. And it moved me too. I get goosebumps when I watch it as well.
Good. Great idea.
And so my favorite track on your latest album is Gone. And
okay.
I feel a lot of emotion, but in a subtle manner. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So where did that song come from in your life?
You know what's funny? That song is, I had that song for a long time. Really, when we were wrapping up the first record, I wrote that song like not too long afterwards. And because we didn't have any more money, we didn't record it. And the band, like, it was so new that the band hadn't really worked on it all that much. But so that song just sort of like was just one of my solo songs for a long time. And where that song came from was I had this very sort of lofty, like quintessential artist relationship. So this song, I met this girl in Seattle who was just visiting. She was living in Nevada at the time, going to school. And for like one night, we had this amazing relationship. Just conversations were like coming naturally, you know, like we just had the same sense of humor. We both were geeking out about math, which, you know, you'll find too many people who love math, especially attractive women. And so it was like this fleeting, like it happened for a night, and I woke up the next day and it was like, what? Was that even real? You know, she was gone again. I was still there. I was like, what the hell just happened? But we exchanged information. And so we started this relationship through letters where we were like, we don't want to just text each other every day and blah, 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 because it's not realistic. Like, it's just not real. And so we started writing letters to each other, and sort of like making things and sending it to each other. And then, you know, that sort of developed a little bit, and we'd kind of meet halfway sometimes and hang out. But it all sort of existed in this like almost fantasy realm, you know. I mean, it was like this is too good to be true, you know. This isn't like, I know for a fact, like if she was to move here, we'd probably realize like, oh, actually we hate each other or something weird would happen. And eventually she did move to Seattle, and we tried to, you know, continue things along, and you know, for various reasons things didn't work out. But there was just so much intensity because of how many emotions and you know, idealistic ideas were put down in those letters. It's like we both knew each other as dreamers, and so when we in reality were trying to see one another, it was almost like a letdown, because both of us in these letters were just so, you know, romantic and sentimental, and you know, all of the daily, like, mundane things that come out of your mouth, you know, are not in these letters. And so once she was actually physically in front of me for an extended amount of time, like that sort of reality started to break down. And things just kind of turn sour. So that song is sort of this, yeah. So wrapping.
No, that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a great answer too. And so your latest album came out at the end, or around the end of last year. It's called Let's Be Still. Everyone can download that on iTunes right now. But since that time, you've been touring a whole bunch, and you'll be coming to Toronto at the Cool House on Sunday, March 30. And you have a lot of shows across Canada and the U.S.
Right.
Are you looking forward towards that?
I really am. We've only been able to play Canada sparingly, and it's just the shows. Honestly, the shows do feel different than American shows, in a good way. So I'm really looking.
How so? Explain.
There's just something a little more, and maybe I'm sure. Obviously, this is going to sound like a general statement, and it's probably not true, but or in its entirety, anyways. I don't know. I just feel like there's just more of a genuineness. I don't know. I don't know what, maybe it's, I feel like I'm going to say this and then everyone's going to be like, what are you talking about? But,
Canada loves you. That's all. You don't need to say anything that you don't want to say.
Yeah. Well, it's a really subtle thing. It's just a really, like, people just seem like less jaded and less cynical and less like worried about what's hip. It's like, oh, I genuinely enjoyed that. That really moved me. And they're just a little more honest with themselves and a little less afraid to be honest with me. And that's just something you don't see too often in the States, because everyone's trying to be, cooler than the next person. And, and it just, it hinders, a real communication. So,
yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
What is one place that you would love to perform that you haven't yet?
Alaska.
Anywhere in the world. Alaska. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. And Hawaii.
Like outdoors in the cold?
Yeah, for two very different reasons, Alaska and Hawaii. Hawaii is for the obvious. It's beautiful and warm and tropical, but Alaska, because can you imagine? I mean, the kind of conversations we're going to have with people that live in Alaska. Like, imagine that. I just feel like that is like even more of an untapped, just well of honesty coming from those people that because of their just that much more isolated from the rest of the garbage that gets is circulating everywhere else. That's just nonsense. I mean, I just feel like to play for people who are sort of detached from that, it would be so rewarding, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be amazing. So
after touring for an extended period of time, what does eventually going back to home mean to you? What does home mean to you?
This might sound silly, but honestly, it's riding around in my truck.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that gets you in your comfort zone.
Yeah, I have a 1985, like V8 Chevy Scottsdale. It's loud, it's huge, it's the biggest pain in the ass to try to park, but I don't know, it's just so awesome. I just love just cruising around. Richmond, Virginia is a pretty small city, and the pace here is pretty slow, and I don't know, I just get in my truck and I just drive like 25 miles per hour through my neighborhood, and I roll my window down and I put on some Ray Charles, and it's like, yeah, I'm home. Like, I'm home. Things are slow again. It just feels like home when I'm doing that very simple activity.
That's thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
And so all of our listeners can find you online at theheadandtheheart.com, on Twitter at headandtheheart, and of course Facebook, Head and the Heart. Are there any other sites that you're on?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm pretty bad with social media. I don't have any of them, so I can't even get on them. So you're asking the wrong person.
Well, for sure you have a YouTube as well. That's where your videos are at.
Right.
That's
right.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much, John, for joining me today.
Yeah. Thank you.
You can follow myself on Twitter at Sean Chin and the show at Live in Limbo, and use the hashtags Capsule Podcast to join in on the conversation. And please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. And of course, you can find the show notes at liveinlimbo.com/capsule. Take care.